particularly performance poetry, is how you can move an audience without even having to touch them. Art in general is not as appreciated as it should be in our part of the world, rather unfortunately.
Let's talk about, say you're on stage and you forget your lines. How do you deal with that?
But all art is not for everyone anyway.
Yes.
So if that art doesn't appeal to you, that's fine. Exactly. But we need art as much in this country. In this country in this economy,
we need
the art, who you are in terms of your qualities as a person, focus, consistency, hard work, resilience. Those things define who you are. Who you know in terms of your network, the network of people that you've built.
So true.
What you know in terms of knowledge, relevant knowledge that you've acquired.
I love this.
And then what you have, your skills and talents, and how much you've refined them. So these things and how much of them you apply ultimately determines the quality, the differences in the quality of our lives. I don't think our education is being done right.
Hello, Vitus.
Hello, Yaira.
How you doing?
I'm doing good.
I'm doing well too. I'm so excited that
Finally.
I'm finally interviewing you, and I mean, you're someone that I really admire, and
thank you.
You're an inspiration to as well. So I was looking forward to this interview. I'm sure we're going to have a very interesting conversation.
Thank you.
So Vitus, you're a spoken word poet, a creative writer. And you have so many pieces that I love so much. I mean, you made me love spoken word, honestly.
Wow.
Honestly, we go way back.
I'm honored.
You made me love spoken word, and wherever I go to, I'll definitely say it. I love how you always perform and how you deliver your pieces.
Thank you.
Tell us, I know people know Vitus, but I still wanted you to introduce yourself to the audience. Tell us who Vitus is and what we don't know about Vitus.
What we do?
Yes, that's
okay.
What we do know and what we don't know.
Really interesting. So, Vitus is a spoken word poet, like you rightly said, a performance poet, a creative writer. Occasionally, I do some bit of public speaking. I'm also an entrepreneur. Yeah, those are things that are known
Yes.
about me. Yes. I usually say that I'm a simple person, but I do like to think that I have a great or incredibly good talent. Yeah, but outside of the art, I'm a very simple person. There's not much.
To that. I testify. You are, but the match part, there's no match part. I don't agree.
There's no
Match.
Really?
No.
Okay.
No. There sure is. There sure is. So, how did the journey as a spoken word poet start for you?
Okay, so for me, the journey in getting here has been more evolutionary than it has been maybe deliberately, perhaps revolutionary.
Yeah.
In that I didn't wake up and decide that I was going to be this person that is doing spoken word, speaking truth to power. No. It didn't happen for me like that. As far back as I can remember, all that I knew is that I love writing, I love talking. Those were two
Since childhood?
Yes, from a very early stage in my life, I've always loved writing, and I'd love to say that I was good at it, and I also loved speaking. I didn't have as much confidence as I do have now, though, in public speaking. But that was all that I knew that I could do. So I remember I used to do the whole junior graphic thing, right, for publications for junior graphic at the time.
Oh.
Fast forward to SHS, the guy who's writing letters for people, and stuff like that. So writing has always been a part of me. Speaking came much later along the line, but it's something I'd always loved. So I think the defining moment for me was somewhere in my secondary school, early years in secondary school. My first year in secondary school, I remember I had an English teacher that exposed me to poetry. Because prior to that, I was writing articles, I was writing riddles, stuff like that, other forms of writing, but I hadn't necessarily done anything poetry. So it was my first year in high school. I had a teacher. Quite interestingly, I've forgotten his name. Yeah, high school we had nicknames for our teachers. Yeah, but he introduced me to poetry in a way that made me fall in love with it. And that was my very first encounter with poetry. I used to write poems that the class loved. People cheered to it. And at that time, I'd still not come to a point where I felt this was maybe a career path or this was something that would become anything big. I used to see it as writing and speaking are
hobby,
just, forms of literacy. It's just been, you narrowly escape being an illiterate. You can just read and write.
Yes.
You see that. But much later, I came to realize that the art is much bigger than just that. In that, several people write. Yeah, everyone that's illiterate will be able to write and read. But when yours always stands out in the crowd, then it means that probably you have some special gift to it, and you could probably hone it and it could become much bigger. Yeah. And so the defining moment for me was in high school. Yeah.
And that's been the experience. You saw that anytime you write, it's special. It stands out.
It stood out.
Yes, I definitely agree to that. I see how you talk about art. I mean, you even have a piece on art.
Yeah.
Art, sorry. What fascinates you about poetry?
Poetry in particular.
Yes.
Okay. So, like I said, I'm a lover of words. I've always been a lover of words. One thing that fascinates me about the art of poetry, particularly performance poetry, is how you can move an audience without even having to touch them. In that, I've always loved the art of persuasion, being able to speak in a way that can move a crowd. Sometimes when I perform and I look at the audience, it's like, it's like scrolling through emojis because you are moving them through different emotional states. You say one thing at a point, they are laughing, at a point they are pensive, they are thoughtful, they are excited. It's a very powerful gift, in my opinion, being able to persuade someone's mindset, to move someone from a certain emotional state to another. For me, it's a superpower. And so that is one thing that fascinates me about the art of poetry. And even the whole creation process, being able to write and then think of a way to perform it in a way that makes it moving as such. Yeah, I remember, like I said, in high school, the first encounter for me, significant encounter, was, I think, watching pieces like Sully Briggs. One of my first pieces was watching a piece by Sully Briggs, Why I Hate School But Love Education. It was very enlightening for me. I'd never seen anything like that before. And that was my very first encounter with like a spoken word video. It did a lot for me. And I realized that this is something I could do. This is something I could do. I could probably build a career around this. I could do this as well.
So it was in high school that you want to build a career out of this?
Yeah, I started this. That decision started right from high school. I was lucky enough to have, like I said, met a teacher who really, helped me hone the craft. And I remember one very moment for me that made me see that. Because initially I used to feel, this is a gift, I'm good at it, but maybe they are just all of that because it's me. Like, they know that I've been doing this for so long. But the moment in my life back in high school that made me see that this is something beyond was, we had to submit a poem. I recall very vividly, we had to submit a poem as an assignment. And I had written a poem, I submitted. A colleague didn't have a poem, so I wrote a poem for him, and then he submitted. And much later, a poem had to be chosen to be used, I think, in an examination of sorts. And that poem was chosen. And for me, what it meant, although it wasn't my poem, what it meant was you were good because it wasn't your name attached to it. It's not you, it's the quality of the work that you're. Exactly. Yes. And so those moments did it for me, like gave me the encouragement to keep going, to do this on a much bigger stage. Yeah.
I mean, I've sat under your perform. I've seen you perform, and I've gone through those emotions. I've gone through those emotions at the end. I'm like just standing and clapping for you because it's amazing. It's really fascinating, and it's beautiful. How many years have you been doing this?
Wow. I'm closing in on 10 years.
Ooh. Yeah, we should celebrate. Yeah, we should.
Yeah, about a decade. I've been doing this for about a decade. Yeah, and it's been wonderful. It's been wonderful.
Fulfilling.
It's very fulfilling. Doing something that you love. I mean, like I said, that I didn't decide to do this. It's just first of all getting to experience the art, getting to experience other people, growing in the arts, and exposing myself to other artists. So after I found Sully Briggs, I went out and looked for several other artists, and not just in the spoken word art. Like I said, public speaking, oratory has been something I've always loved. So other people that do this, and spoken word as an art form is a very conscious art form. It's kind of like hip hop as a genre of music. It's a very conscious art form. Although now hip hop has been diluted in a lot of ways, but spoken word as an art form is mostly used for activism and a lot of stuff like that. So by getting exposed to such forms of art, it shaped my thoughts as well. It wasn't just about the art anymore. Now the content also meant something because a lot of the spoken word that I had listened to are very conscious. There were things that, were very focused on impact, like revolutionary stuff, activism and stuff like that. So it shaped my whole thinking process and all of that. And so that also kind of shaped the way I think and the way I speak as well.
And deliver.
Exactly.
Wow, 10 years.
Yeah.
We should celebrate.
We should.
And in this almost 10 years journey, what has been the challenges being a spoken word poet in Ghana?
In Ghana. Well, yeah, if you do this for this long, it would definitely come with certain challenges. I think one of the biggest challenges that I see here is the acceptance of the art form. The art form in itself doesn't have as much acceptance. Ghana is very conservative in certain ways. Poetry is almost always seen as a discipline, like an academic discipline, as an academic discipline. But it can exist as an academic discipline and also exist as a performance art. So that in itself has been very limited, breaking those barriers, those stereotypes that exist around the art, and then presenting the art to people in its beauty, and then people's acceptance, sometimes acceptance of the art on certain stages, being willing to pay value for the art.
For the art.
Exactly. Art in general is not as appreciated as it should be in our part of the world, rather unfortunately, in that even if you compare what the highest artist in Ghana of any other art form may be receiving in terms of revenue or remuneration for their art, it doesn't compare anywhere on the world stage. Exactly. So acceptance of art, value for art in our part of the world is very low. But it's significantly growing in any case. But it is. But that's one of the biggest challenges. Beyond that, it's hard for me to recognize things that I would call challenges because it's something I love doing. Yeah, so there may be challenges, but it's something I can easily overcome because I love what I do. Exactly.
Let's talk about, say you're on stage and you forget your lines. How do you deal with that?
Initially, it was a problem. Like initially, when you start out, it happens very often. But there's a certain point in doing it where you get so comfortable that you know that no one else knows
that.
You don't know what I'm saying. So if I put something there, it'll still make sense because, I'll put intelligible words there. So you always find a way around it at a certain point. Initially, it's much of a problem. You forget your lines, you go blank. The audience is trying to encourage you with applause, but as you move along, you know it's not much of a problem. Exactly. You know where to pick up from. You may not forget you may forget maybe the next line or two, but you know where to pick up from, and it will still make sense. Yeah.
We'll come to this the discussion about performance and stage and all of that. But then, how is the creation process for you in coming out, like creating a piece? How is the process like?
Okay.
What inspires you?
All right. So my creative process, I get this question a lot, and I struggle to try and visualize the whole process for me. For me, it's like you rightly said, creative process. It's the creation of it on mind that is really the whole process. The writing for me, I think as a result of writing, often the skill of writing is built up. But the creation has to do with the concepts that you have to come up with and all of that. And that for me takes a lot of time, like thinking about some genius way to present the idea. For instance, I have a piece titled The Movement. It's one of my favorite pieces anyway. And that piece, I love it because of how it starts. So it's a piece that talks about hate speech, that talks about addressing like hate speech on social media and all of that. And the way in which I started it was to just start hurling insults at people. And then getting to the end, I switch to talk about the perspective of the one doing it and let you see that people who do that are bruised themselves. Hurt people. So that whole creative process for me is the most challenging thing. And that can take me quite some time just coming over it. I usually say that if you give me, let's say, 1 hour to create a piece, I'll probably spend the first 40 to 50 minutes just thinking about it. Once I have a very good, solid idea or concept, the 10 minutes will just flow.
Amazing. So talking about stages, which stage have you performed on in your journey that you are most proud of?
Most proud of?
Because I've seen you perform on a lot of stages, like especially in the course of last year.
Okay.
It was like just back to back, back to back. Or was it no last year?
Okay,
You had a number of like performances. Which one are you most proud of?
Let me be biased and say my own stage.
I know, creative combo.
Yeah, my own
creative
stage.
combo.
I think that's one of the highlights for me, being able to put up your own events because it's challenging. It's
did
challenging.
well.
But apart from that, apart from being biased, I would say having to go to Nigeria, I think that was somewhere in 2020. I'm not quite certain. But in 2020, I was in Nigeria for the Zuma Film Festival. And that was a very different experience for me. First of all, the fact that art could take me there was a whole experience. And then getting to perform and still seeing how your art can transcend borders and still be very relatable was a very new experience and a highlight for me. So yeah, that was one stage I was particularly...
Beautiful. When are we having Creative Convo again? I mean, those of you who don't know Creative Convo, what's Creative Convo?
So Creative Convos is my event that spoken word events that I curate some of the finest spoken word artists, including myself, of course, in the country and probably even beyond, to come and share gifts. As the name suggests, creative conversations, to have creative conversations around issues, like topical issues, and it's an amazing journey. Like it's something to experience. It's different because very often I meet a lot of people that feel like poetry is not really my thing. I don't kind of like it. I think it's kind of different, but I'm always of the opinion that probably it's the person you experience. Exactly. So in Creative Convos, we try to get artists from with different voices, different styles.
Yes,
exactly.
I've
Very wide spectrum of art. That is so beautiful. And I'm very positive that once you come, you'd find your person amongst one of those artists.
True.
Yeah.
So when are we experiencing Creative Convo again?
Let's hope this year. Maybe this year. Maybe this year.
Oh, nice. We look forward to it.
I'm also looking forward to it as well.
You spoke about the fact that art is not well appreciated, or poetry is not well embraced in Ghana as it's supposed to. What other factors, or what are the factors you think contributes to that? This? Yes.
This thing. So we live in a part of a world where people don't just see art as important enough unless it's being used for something that they see important. I don't know if that makes sense.
It does.
For instance, let me give an example. And I hope I don't cause a stir as a result of that. Quite recently, I had someone make a claim about movies of a certain a certain type of movies, and the person saying that if there's going to be a movie, it has to pass across certain moral values and all of that. And if it doesn't, then what's the point? I mean, and I get where the person is coming from. I mean, that was coming from someone that I respect so much in the art. But here's the point. Art by itself is enough, all right? Yes, it can still be used for other things. It can be used for social change. It can be used for impacts of diverse forms. But art by itself is enough. The fact that art can bring healing emotionally is enough. But we live in a world where people don't even take mental health that serious. So for something that is only doing something emotionally for someone in our part of the world, they don't see it as so much, unless it's doing something else, like the art has to do something. No, by itself, art is cathartic enough, it's healing enough, it's powerful enough, as it is, just bringing healing to someone. People don't see that. If it's music, they say that if the lyrics are not deep enough, it's not, no, but it still qualifies to be art. You see, if you take Beethoven's symphonies, there are no words, but it's still powerful.
What are those?
Like symphonies, like instrumentations. Okay. You look at Enya, those you see, it's just instruments, but no words, but it's healing. It's enough. So art by itself is enough, but people don't see that unless there's something more to it here before they consider that art. And that is a mindset that needs to be broken. And once we get to that point, we begin to appreciate art irrespective of, like, on its own, irrespective of what it's being used for. And then art can also be used for social change, for impact, for all of those things.
But it's only appreciated when it's used for those things.
But more often than not, when it's being used for something of sorts. And that is a problem in itself. You see that, because someone feels like, what's it doing? Sometimes I get that a lot. Someone like, when I go for art exhibition, it's nice, but what's the point to it? Exactly. But all art is not for everyone anyway. Yes. So if that art doesn't appeal to you, that's fine. But the fact that it doesn't appeal to you doesn't mean that you should make less of someone's art. I mean, respect the fact that it will, do something for someone else. And whatever art appeals to you, you accept it for. So that's one thing. The orientation about art, especially even in our schools, that's where it starts from. Poetry, I was lucky enough to have had a teacher who presented art to me in a way that made me love it. But how many people may have had that experience, like first-hand experience?
Really shuts them up if they talk about it.
So that's where the problem is. We give too much precedence to, we make it look like other art forms are important, or other disciplines are more important than the arts. Exactly. So from schools, once these things are inculcated into schools, like we give too much importance to, not too much, but, it's not balanced.
Yes.
So maybe the sciences compared to the arts. Exactly, but we need art as much in this country. In this country in this economy, we need the arts even more. Exactly, it helps us relax. It does so much for us.
So true. So Vitus speaks. I like Vitus speaks better. So I know you don't only do spoken word.
Yeah.
Yes, yeah. You do other things. Can you tell us the other things you do, or what else you're involved in?
Okay, so I'm an EduTech CEO as well. I run an educational hub. We train kids in. So I'm also into tech as well. We train kids in coding, robotics, and we run a number of other programs. We run the SAT program. We run web design for kids. Our focus is mostly on the kids. We're trying to give kids an early start into the world of tech.
Amazing.
Yeah.
They need it.
Yeah.
Why kids?
Okay.
Why not adults too?
Why not adults? Okay. I would say it's from my experience,
Yes.
And then my interest and passion. From my experience with education in this country, I don't think our education is being done right in most of our schools, especially our public schools. The average school is not doing education in the right way. If you check out the average student that comes out of the universities of so many places, you realize that there's something lacking. There's a deficit. I usually say that most schools are just churning out a bunch of pen drives. Excuse my language, but we have people that are just able to memorize and then regurgitate information. But in terms of their, practical application in life, people haven't got it. And so I wanted to have a setup that corrects that at an early stage, because sometimes it's much too late. When I look at students from elsewhere, compare them to the average student from here, vast difference. Even students from colleges, compared to a student from a school like Ashasi. And Ashasi is a school that was set up by Dr. Patrick Ewa, who is an ex-Microsoft employee. You realize the difference in the average student from an Ashasi compared to the students from, they pale in comparison. And so I realized that the problem is how the education is introduced to them. And so I wanted to have a setup that starts early and then introduces them to these things in the right way. And then that's what inspired
the setup. And are you achieving that? How has that journey been?
It's been amazing.
How many years now, though?
We are closing in on, this is our 4th year.
Okay.
So when I look at the things the kids are able to do, it's amazing to me myself. It's very amazing. We see kids, very innovative kids, come up with solutions to problems, realistic problems in their environment, in their own small ways. It's beautiful to see, and it gives me hope of what this can become, because I don't see much difference between a kid from Ghana and a kid from China that is coming up with inventions and all of that. It's just the exposure, the right education, the early start. And so that is what we wanted to do. And looking at the results we are achieving, it's beautiful to see.
So when you say kids, what's the age range?
So we do from 5 to 15. mostly from 5 to 15. We work with certain schools as well. Sometimes we handle kids a little below 5, but mostly within the age brackets of 5 to 15 years.
Okay. What has been some of the challenges you faced?
The challenges sometimes is mostly with the parents in understanding what we are trying to achieve with the kids. They know that this is where the world is heading. They know that this is something they should probably give to their kids, but they themselves don't understand what it's about. All right, we have sometimes parents you interact with. They bring their kids. They know that this is important, but their understanding of even what coding is, all right, what robotics
they don't
is.
see the use now.
They know that the world is heading there,
Yes.
but they don't even understand it. So sometimes being able to explain, like sometimes to even give feedback to the parents about the progress they're not even able to appreciate the progress that the wards may be making. Some, though, I mean, there are a good number of parents that are able to. Some are not able to appreciate the progress, the growth. And then also in working with schools, there are also schools that if you happen to have authorities of the schools that also do not see the essence, sometimes selling such a product to them can be quite a challenge, because then they also feel like, yeah, we heard that this thing about coding, robotics, the world is going there, but what is it? And we try to sell it to them, and sometimes they get it, sometimes they don't. Exactly. They are looking for something that parents, can relate with, But the differences in the schools, actually, these things, giving kids programs that explore, their imaginative creativity, practical application to life. Exactly, opens up the kid. Exactly. So sometimes being able to sell it to parents that may not have been privileged to have experienced this can be a challenge.
You're doing so well.
Thank you.
You're doing so well, and I believe this is very, very important. So if people want to know more about like the establishment, the EduTech, where can they find you and all of that?
At Next Gen Educational Hub. So what we do is we train kids in a number of specialized programs. Our flagship program being robotics. You can check it out. Check us out. Our website is nextgeneducationalhub.com. You can visit us on social media. Check out the amazing stuff that we are doing with the kids. And if you have your kids, bring them along to come experience this and come learn as well. Yeah.
I love that. So let's come back to the stage. Let's come back to you as a spoken word poet. If there's someone out there knowing how poetry is not so appreciated in Ghana, but then wants to pursue it, the person is passionate about it, the person knows, like, as you discovered yourself, the person has discovered himself or herself like that, but then is not confident and bold enough to pursue it. What advice would you give to such a person?
Okay, so the first thing I would say is, when it comes to arts or showbiz, as they call it, there's the aspect of the show and the biz. So the show aspect is the artistry. So first of all, you need to build your artistry. You need to take time to build your artistry. If it's the writing of poetry, you need to really hone the craft. You need to refine the art, become so good at it, incredibly good at it, at what you do. Find your voice. Take your time to actually practice. I earlier said that it can exist both as a performance artist and then also as a discipline, as an academic discipline. So there's an academic aspect to it. You need to learn the literature of the art and be incredibly good at it. And aside the show aspect, there's the aspect of the business. And so there's the business side to art. And so that you have to learn as well. You can't just go into art thinking that I'm good and so I would excel at it. It doesn't work that way. Especially in this part of the world, knowing the challenges that come with it, you need to learn how to, run a business around an art, especially if you're not under management or under a record label that is going to handle everything for you. You need to learn how to handle all the aspects of the art yourself, how to market yourself, because it's not just about value, it's about marketed value. You can have value, but if that value is not rightly marketed, you wouldn't get its worth. So learning, first of all, the art, how to hone the craft and become incredibly good at what you do, be so dope at what you do. And then secondly, learn how to sell it. And then once you put these two together, you do well. Yes.
So the person should pursue it, definitely.
Yes, definitely. But you need to put in the necessary, preparation for it, and then you do incredibly well at it.
Amazing. Thank you so much for that. And we'll be wrapping up very soon. Okay. But what principles and values do you hold in high esteem when it comes to your journey as a founder of an EduTech and then as a spoken word poet? What
principles and values?
Yes.
Okay. So So one thing I've come to realize is that the differences in the quality of lives is a reflection of what you know and how much of it you apply. So in a much broader sense, it's a function of a bunch of who's and what's, like what you know, what you have, who you know, and who you are.
Yes.
So who you are in terms of your qualities as a person, focus, consistency, hard work, resilience, those things define who you are. Who you know in terms of your network, the network of people that you've built.
So true.
What you know in terms of knowledge, relevant knowledge that you've acquired.
I love this.
And then what you have, your skills and talents, and how much you've refined them. So these things and how much of them you apply ultimately determines the quality, the differences in the quality of our lives. At the very basics, this is what it is. So you look at someone that is a high achiever, someone that has achieved so much in life, and someone who has not, is the difference in what the person knows, what the person has, who the person knows, and then who the person is.
Wow.
These things ultimately separate us at the end of the day. So you need to build them. You need to, like I was saying that maybe the opportunities that we may have had, the educational system may not have helped you, but you can do that for yourself. You can build value for yourself. You can build value around who you are, the people, the network of people that you relate with, your circle and all of that. Build value for yourself. And ultimately, it will determine the difference between who you are and then the next person.
Oh, I feel so blessed right now. So these are the values and principles that you go by and that has governed your journey.
Definitely.
Amazing.
Definitely.
I've enjoyed this.
I've enjoyed it as well.
So insightful. And before you go, you're going to have a freestyle. And I wish he could perform like all his pieces, but then I'm trying to get him to do two. But he said he'll do one. I want us to do education. Or which one did you have in mind?
Education.
So I want you to give a freestyle of education.
Okay.
And then we'll take it from there.
Okay.
So let's go.
So education is key to success. Or maybe not the key, but it is key to success. In other words, education is essential for success. Argue all you want, but this statement is legit. Name one man who succeeded without education, huh? I don't know, many will be quick to mention names like Osei Kwame, despite. Because despite he has never been to any higher learning institution, he made a fortune for himself. Well, hold up. He may not have had formal education, but you will be wrong to say he has no education. See, education is simply the process of knowledge and skill acquisition. Undoubtedly, there are several ways to reach this destination, and school is just one of many such creations. So yes, I agree that school is not the only means to attain success, but I asked someone, what viable skills do you have to succeed in real life? Don't just lie in bed. Pick up your phone, go online, join a hashtag that says that education is not the key to success when clearly you have no viable skills besides retweeting. You call names like Bill Gates and Mark Zuckerberg as dropouts who succeeded to buttress your claim that education is not the key to success. Well, Bill Gates didn't need a key. He literally made his own doors and windows for success. So unless you've got skills like Zuckerberg, stay in school and face books. The crux of my message is this. Add value to yourself. So whether you do it in school or not, simply equip yourself with the requisite skills, knowledge, and training that sells in the real world. Being in school doesn't exempt you from this. Business owners employ skills, not thermometers, so forget about your degrees. And no greater masters exist than to master the courage to learn things you were never taught in school. Food for thought. They say an illiterate is someone who cannot read and write. So what do you call someone who went to school? Still cannot read and write. And what do you call someone who never went to school and yet can read and write? Keep those thoughts to yourself. But I'll leave you with just one word from Albert Einstein. Education is what remains after one has forgotten what one learned in school. Peace.
I remember like, as you're going, some of the things were coming to me. I was like, yeah, this is going this way, it's going this way. Amazing. That's
Thank
that was
you.
a beautiful piece. And I remember when you put it out there, the comments,
Thank you so much.
it's beautiful.
Thank
Your
you.
pieces are impactful,
Thank
very
you so
impactful.
much.
And my show is to interview thriving young Africans who are doing great like yourself, and to share their inspiring journey, how they started and how they are growing, so that people get to know them, people are inspired by them, and people learn from them, and we impact the upcoming generation and even our generation. What advice would you have, or do you have for any? I mean, you've shared a lot so far, but then what's should I say two advice, or give two advice to anyone out there who wants to make an impact, make a difference, be an inspiration, and be a blessing unto others?
Okay, so the first thing I'd say, first of all, is the fact that one thing I've come to realize is this thing about tabula rasa, the fact that human beings are born as a blank slate, and then they are socialized into becoming who they become. So the fact that people are the way they are because of nature and nurture being a more powerful force. So first of all, nurture yourself into becoming who you want to become. Nurture yourself in the sense that expose yourself to the right people, the people that can influence you into becoming who you want to become. All right. Give yourself the right exposure to the right people, the people that would make a significant impact in your life. You know, if you taking a cue from the story Rich Dad Poor Dad book, you realize that I don't know if people are familiar with that book, but you realize that he had a rich dad and then a poor dad, and the influences from the rich dad are what we really hold in high esteem for the book. So don't limit yourself to the environments that you grew up in. Don't limit yourself to the environment you grew up in. Take advantage of the internet will be the second thing that I'll say. The internet has given us a wide array of people to look up to. It has given us access to the world at our fingertips. So don't be where you are and complain about not having opportunities. The internet gives us so much access to the world, all right? All you need is data. You see that? And yeah, data may be a bit expensive, but if you consider the price of knowledge, the price of journeying to places, you know, to get knowledge and all of that, you realize that data is not as expensive as traveling elsewhere to go and get it. So take advantage of the internet, expose yourself rightly, get the right inspirations, and you'd be where you want to be. It's a definite thing. It's as simple as adding 1 plus 1. Once you have the right inspiration, you have the right people to look up to, and you've reformed your mind, it will definitely reform your life as well.
Amazing. Thank you so much. As you were speaking, a question came to mind. I'm curious about how do you ensure that you are constantly and consistently refining your talent and skill as a spoken word poet?
Yeah. So there's a whole cycle to most performers, poets, or even comedians, and that is you start by writing, go to clubs, perform, test it with audiences, and it's something you need to constantly do, no matter how big you get. People as big as Kevin Hart still will enter a comedy club and still perform. People as big as whoever would still enter comedy clubs to perform. People as big, huge poets will still enter those clubs to perform, and it's something I always do. First of all, I get the right inspiration you always find me either at a poetry club or at a comedy club within a weekday. At least once a week, I would always go to a poetry club or a comedy club. And I use comedy club because there's a lot of similarity in the art form. It's both monologues, like you just have to stand there performing so there's a lot to learn. So you always find me there to learn hands-on and then also to perform. So that is one thing that I do. I keep writing. That's a constant thing, writing every day. Even if not because I'm going to perform, I write all the time. It's to sharpen the skill, all right? I always say that not all the pieces I've written will make it out. Yeah, but a lot of the pieces I've written which do not make it out, they prepared me for the ones that made it out. So just keep writing, and then as much as possible, try to go through that process of entering a comedy club, a small audience, no matter how large it is. Sometimes we are anticipating the huge audience, but it's the small ones that helps you work. Exactly. So the small audiences, poetry club, go perform there. Always go to check the feedback, go back, work it, go back to the drawing board, work on it. Once you get a final. So you do that? Yeah, I'm saying people as huge as Kevin Hart, we are rich. You see that? It's like, it's a whole process.
With running the edutech and all.
Oh yeah, passion. So once I'm passionate about it, so I'll definitely make the time. So till date, I always make the time to do that.
Wow,
and I love going there. Sometimes not to perform, like I said, but to listen. Sometimes it's beautiful to hear new perspectives. It adds to your repertoire, what you have or your skill set. You see something that you never thought of. It comes to add to you. It's worth it. Learn. Yeah.
Amazing. Thank you so much, Vitus.
You're most welcome.
I'm excited. So much. We had this. It's finally happened. And it's been insightful.
And let me, not to cut you, but let me say that you're doing an amazing work yourself in spotlighting young people, young change makers. And this will be a point of light onto people.
Thank you. So I hope you were inspired by this episode. It's been insightful to you. And as you know, it's a show to spotlight thriving young Africans, to provide inspiration to you, to also be an inspiration to others. So do well. feel free, leave a thought, share, and let me know. Definitely let me know what you think about this episode. Thank you so much for watching to this point. Bye.